Megadeth.
Welcome to another episode of Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. We're going aviation style, baby. F-14 Tomcat. Woo! All right. So this is Cindy, your host over at Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. I am a aviation podcaster. I actually am a travel agent as well. And since 2017, I've had a podcast. And over the last 3 years, I added aviation. And all because of Lorenzo with the F-14 podcast. They introduced me to Leekster, and then Rob Todd, and then Mitch Taco Bell, and then Heater, and the list goes on and on and on. So I'm going to pop everyone in green room, and I'm going to leave the Leekster in here. So here we go. All right, Leekster, let's talk.
Hey, happy to be here. Good to see you again.
Well, happy National Aviation Day. And of course, you know, American Airlines is my favorite. So would you like to talk a little bit about American Airlines, kind of tell your story? We'll go about 10 minutes each for each of our guests, and then
Sure.
talk about the kayak.
Well, actually, you know what this whole thing is so apropos to have this group of folks that you have on, because you know, my dream growing up was always to fly. I came from an aviation family, but I wasn't sure how I was going to get there. And I can tell you that it's so interesting to me that here we are on your show with Heater Heatley, who was one of the earlier inspirations for me as a teenager. You know, when his book came out, The Cutting Edge, all of us aviation nerds, we had that book on our bookshelf, right, and on our coffee tables. And you know, before the internet, I know it's hard for a lot of young people to imagine, but that's really what you had to do, right? You got out the Encyclopedia Britannica and you looked up airplanes, or I got Heater's book and I looked at these incredible photographs, and it seemed like an almost impossible dream for me that I would get to participate in that show that is in there. You know, that was the inspiration. That book went on to be the inspiration for the movie Top Gun, and inspired so many young folks to get involved in naval aviation and other places in aviation as well. So it's pretty cool for me. It's really an honor. I got to meet and hang out with Heater last year in San Diego at the Top Gun days with Taco Bell, who's also an old friend of mine. And Taco is one of those guys that has done so much for folks, veterans, and people in this industry, and even for me. And we met many years ago, about the same time we both got picked up at a major airline. And he's such a great guy. We've been friends ever since. And he invited me to go to EAA last year, and he and I, it was his doing, got to escort around a couple of Medal of Honor winners while we were there, recipients, if you will, the Medal of Honor recipients. And that was such an incredible experience for me. And Taco is doing things like that all the time for veterans. I mean, he's basically spent his adult life doing those kind of veteran events and inspiring a whole bunch of people. And then you got Rob Todd, who, oddly enough, he and I were on the USS America together back in the 90s, and we had completely different jobs. And Rob's job, you know, firing the catapult and hooking up the aircraft to the catapult and getting us safely off of the flight deck. And we met back in those days. And then thanks to Taco, we were put back in contact with each other after 25 or 30 years. And it's just amazing to me that that little group. And then Smokehouse, who's also supposed to be on here, we were in the same squadron in VF 102, and he was a little bit senior to me. He was there before me. So when you're a new guy in the squadron, you're looking up to these guys who have more experience than you. And he was kind of that mentor for good or bad, because Smokehouse was always a lot of fun to be around. He was the biggest personality in the squadron. So you know, when you're a new guy, you're like looking up to guys like that. And he's a great fighter pilot. So I always enjoyed flying with him as his wingman back in those days.
So, you know, I love the 777, but my biggest plane porn is that F-14 Tomcat.
Right. And that's two of us. You know, I love flying the 777. I can tell you that it's an amazing machine, and it's a dream come true for me. You know, sometimes it's just, you know, yesterday I was surfing in the Pacific Ocean, and today I'm in Miami. Tomorrow I'll be in Rio de Janeiro walking on the beach. And, you know, last week I was in Tokyo eating sushi. So it's sometimes it just blows your mind, the experiences that you can have in aviation, traveling around the world. And it just doesn't seem real sometimes how incredible that is to be in one place and then another place almost instantaneously. So and along that path, nobody gets there by themselves, right? I mean, aviation is a team sport, and all the people that have wanted to fly, you know, you work your butt off, you have to study, and you have to go through all these training courses, and along the way there's happy days, and it's full of blood, sweat, and tears, you know, happy and sad, and you have to redo things occasionally, and just trying to get to that place where that you've always wanted to be. And part of that is building up a network of support, and whether that's from your family or from your instructors, but it always involves other pilots. And we all aviation folks are always helping each other out. And that's, you know, where you and Lorenzo have come into my life. We're able to spread that word and kind of hopefully show other people that, hey, anybody can do this. You just have to want it. You got to go out and do it. You want to be around airplanes. You want to fly airplanes. You want to work on airplanes. It's all fun, and it's a great field to be in. So I really like this message on National Aviation Day, and I think it's amazing that really this kind of circle that you put together today came together for us, because they're all very important people in my life, or have been along the way.
So we're going to get Heater on in a few minutes, but let's talk about one of your catapult stories.
Well, you know, the catapult is on the ship. That's what separates naval aviation from the Air Force, right? It's amazing how many people have said to me when I said, oh, I fly fighter planes off of ships, they would go, oh, that's the Air Force, right? And it's like, well, no. And naval aviation, which has been around for over 100 years in the United States, has always been off of aircraft carriers, right? And that's what really separates us, that we can take this airport with 90 aircraft and park it right on somebody's doorstep, and let them know that we can influence what's going on in the world, just about any single corner of the planet at any time that our government decides they need to use that. So yeah, the catapult is a blast, and the first time you get launched off the catapult, you think, oh, I know it's going to be violent, and you're all excited and your heart's beating 1,000,000 miles an hour, but when it does actually fire, it is shockingly violent, and it is so, the acceleration is mind-blowing. And then as you move up in aircraft, of course, in the F-14, at our maximum takeoff weight was 70,000 pounds initially. When I finished in the F-14, we were taking off at 72,000 pounds. Wow. You would hit the end of that catapult at close to 200 miles per hour, and it would just peel your face off in about a second and a half, really. And Rob, Todd, your other guest, was right underneath, all in between the energy of that catapult, which was steam provided at that time, and the actual aircraft itself, which is it's just a stunningly dangerous place to be, where he would squeeze underneath that airplane and hook us up. And then when you would run up the power on the aircraft and wipe out the controls and make sure that everything was working correctly, no warning lights, things like that. And then you would salute the catapult officer, and then he would give you a zone 5 signal for us in the F-14A, which is what Heater and I flew. And then you would push the aircraft into afterburner, and then they would launch you shortly thereafter. You could see the shooter, who was the guy who made sure the deck was clear. That's the guy in all the videos you see touching the deck and pointing down the catapult. And then you see a young sailor on the side of the ship who actually also double checks that the catapult line is clear. And then that's the shooter right there. There you go. that famous pose. And so when he does that, he says, okay, launch him. And then the last guy is this guy. He's got the actual button, and then he reaches under and pushes that button. And that's when you know you're about to go. And so if anything is going to go wrong with the airplane, it's going to happen probably on the catapult launch, because it's so violent that instruments can come out of the instrument panel, engines can fail, parts can break. So there's quite a lot of dramatic video out there with from catapult launches of accidents and people ejecting. And in the F-14, at least in my squadron, our standard operating procedure was that the Rio, the guy in the back seat, he had his hand on the ejection handle. And if he felt you needed to go while you were going down the catapult stroke or shortly thereafter, that's when he would pull the ejection handle and save both of us. So you were really trusting that person in the back to get you out if you needed to get out as a pilot. Of course, you could always pull your own handle too if you felt like maybe that he didn't know or you needed to go. That was your resort too, was to reach down and pull the handle between your legs or the face curtain. Yeah. In the F-14. A new aircraft, they don't even make that face curtain anymore.
Oh, really?
So they just have it between the legs. That's the easiest and quickest way to get to the handle from the controls of the aircraft. So that's where 99% of most people would choose that handle if you needed to go off the catapult. So, yeah, I had a couple nasty catapult stories. You know, one time I was on the catapult and I had an engine compressor stall right as they were calling to me to shoot, and you yell on the radio, suspend, start shaking your head, and you hope they don't launch you with an engine failure. And then another one I had was they had put the wrong steam setting in the catapult, and the aircraft came off the end at a very low rate of speed, and we actually fell off the front of the carrier. I didn't think we were going to survive that catapult launch, and I was expecting to either crash or eject, and we ended up in ground effect and full afterburner. This was a waist catapult shot, which are the two catapults that are in the middle of the ship. So when we came off and fell down, we were actually flying along next to the ship where the bow is, about 5 feet off the water in afterburner, kind of standing the airplane on its tail. And we managed to climb away, but it was not a fun experience. I remember seeing that ship bow going by the window of the aircraft and thinking I was going to crash in the water. And,
well, yeah, I remember you telling me that story. Yeah. One thing that, so Heater really doesn't know my backstory. I actually grew up near Travis Air Force Base, and I was only a 16-year-old who would get excited about a C-5. And then years later, right out of high school, I actually started working for a Mare Island shipyard on a naval submarine. And that's kind of where I fell in love with the Navy. And then, of course, that's where Top Gun came out. And I actually was told by Javier Medina that there's this really amazing naval program called the Distinguished Visitors Program. And I'm actually going to apply for that because being a aviation podcaster, it would be my dream. My aviation bucket list is to get on one of those carriers, because I think it's a 2 or 3 day deal where you get to hang out and get to see like how their life.
Sometimes it's 1 day, sometimes it's more, but they will fly you out and you'll get a trap. Usually these days they might be using the Osprey to carry people back and forth. Although they've had some issues.
That's what Javier said. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, did you want to stay on, or you want to pop off? Did you want to stay on till the end of the show?
No, I gotta head out because I've got to go to work. But I am so grateful to share this message with folks out there and be in this same club as a guy like Heater Heatley, who's been an inspiration to countless people. So I'm so happy to pass this the baton here, and so great to see you, Heater.
Thanks, Leekster.
Thanks, Leekster. We'll talk to you soon. Surf's up. We'll catch some waves. All right, Heater Heatley. So let's talk a little backstory, and also about Top Gun movie. How that started, all because of you.
Oh, my backstory. I started in 72, so it's kind of neat looking at the crew you assembled here, because I got to meet everybody. And I think it was only about a week and a half ago I was at Rob Todd's house and spent some time in Wyoming trying to get acclimated to higher altitude. So maybe my blood cancer would benefit by my bone marrow trying to produce more oxygen. So I spent the last 30 days in Wyoming, Montana, and Colorado at high altitude. And on my way back, I stopped at Waukene, Kansas, and saw the F-14 that Rob's putting together. And ironically, that's where he is today. So he's broadcasting from the very hotel I stayed in right across from the F-14.
Wow.
But short story about me is 28 years in the Navy, over 1,100 cat shots like Leekster. I had some crazy ones. None of mine were bad. I didn't have a single bad one or anyone that was even interesting. I loved them all.
Excuse me.
The landings were different, coming back with a lot of emergencies. So I made up for it on that end. And over 6,400 hours, 2,500 hours in the Tomcat. But Aviation Day is, I think, the anniversary of Orville Wright, first powered flight. And so I was talking to a friend of mine from VF-21 recently, and he reminded me of something that happened in a DC-9 that might be more appropriate to talk about with our two airline pilots here. And I mean, all this stuff about Top Gun and the F-14, I'm not sure if that's part of Naval or National Aviation Day or not. I thought it was more of an airline thing. What do you say?
I say yes. Aviation.
It's all aviation, not just airline. All right. Well, do you want to hear the airline story?
Definitely.
So we're in North Island on a DC-9, and it's packed with, I think, at least 60 or more black shoes in khakis. So the airplane was loaded with all the surface warriors, plus me, Beach Ball, my Rio, and apparently Mark Garcia, call sign Maverick, ironically enough.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he was in the back somewhere. He watched me do this. And anyway, we take off and we're heading east. And I have to get to Grumman to pick up a brand new airplane, fly it back to the West Coast with Beach Ball. So after takeoff, I go to sleep. And about an hour into the flight at altitude, Beach Ball got really scared. And he did one of these on me. I'm next to the window. And he goes, "Heater, wake up. Something's wrong." And I look out the window, and the horizon was like that, which means our airplane attitude was about like that. And the airplane was shaking and shuddering, and all the overhead bins were popping open and starting from the back, almost like dominoes, because of the shaking was affecting the tail first. All the luggage start coming out of the overhead compartments, starting in the back and working their way forward toward me. I'm maybe 12 seats back. And it put in my mind the time that only the crew took a 747 out of Kansas City on a functional check hop. And this happened just previously to this incident. And it's all I could think of, because what happened is their airspeed indicator broke. Yeah, similar to what happened to me in a really bad emergency with a MiG-21. My pitot tube sheared off, and so I had no airspeed, and it thought I was doing supersonic, which changed all my flight controls and made it really hard to fly and land. So I'm thinking the same thing's happening here. The one in the 747, their airspeed kept running away. So the captain kept saying to his crew, we're lightweight. We have no passengers, so we have much more power than normal. So he kept thinking that the power was giving it high airspeed. So he kept pulling the nose up. And then the more it shuddered in stall, the more they were convinced that it was Mach buffet, because it was getting close to Mach, which you never want to do in a 747. And eventually they never figured it out, stalled it out, and crashed and killed them all.
Oh my God.
So I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy in front of my DC-9 with all these people is doing the same thing. So I'm still trying to wake up. I get in the aisle and I realize it is really steep to get to the cockpit. I mean, more steep than I could walk. So I had to grab onto the seat and pull myself up one row and then pull myself up the next row. And I pulled myself all the way up to the cockpit door, which back then in the late 80s was obviously still open. And I go in the cockpit and I look, and here is the pilot and the co-pilot. They're both locked arms. They're both frozen like this with their hands on the yoke. And they're both frozen, just staring. And I look at the airspeed and we're below 150 knots in a fully loaded DC-9 at 33,000 feet. And I said, push the nose over or you're going to kill us all. And they go, we're waiting for clearance. I said, you don't need clearance. Push the nose over or we're all going to die. And so he pushed the nose over a little bit. And all of a sudden, as soon as he got a little bit forward on the yoke, this violent shaking stopped and the suitcases stopped coming out of the overhead. And then about then, center cleared him to a lower altitude. I heard him do it. And he said, you can take your seat now. We got it. So afterwards, I waited to be the last person off the airplane. And when we landed, I said, you set the altitude and you forgot about the throttles, didn't you? And he looked me right in the eye and he said, yep, we were a lot heavier than what the throttles could stand. So we set the altitude and neither of us noticed the airspeed decay. You know, went from 350 to 349, 348, real slow, and got all the way down to 145 and starting to stall. And so at least he admitted it, but that was as scared as I've been in an airplane, and I wasn't even flying it. Yeah, so I don't know why that came into my head other than Maverick was just talking about it the other day, so I thought I'd bring it up. More in tune with airliners than fighter planes that I'm used to.
And if you're available, I'd love to have you in November. We have Aviation History Month, and I would like to go more in depth on the whole Top Gun, you know, how you were discovered, and of course, that amazing book that came out many, many years ago. So, in closing, would you like to add anything before we go to Taco?
No, just thank you for all the aviation fans that like Top Gun, like my squadron Top Gun, the school, and the movies, which I had a little to do with, and all the people that came to my aid with my 3 medical emergencies. That was really great. So to me, every day is Aviation Day.
It is. And I was actually talking to Rob Todd on the phone the other day. I'm gonna be turning 60 next July. So I'm thinking maybe we could all get together over in Wisconsin for the most amazing air show here in the United States. I actually live near Huntington Beach, so we actually have our Pacific Air Show coming up in a couple months. But it would be really great either there or at the Tomcat spot, which Rob will talk about here in a little bit. So thank you so much. So if anybody wants to check out Heater Heatley, please go to Facebook. You can actually see here on the show notes. I'll be posting that a little bit later. So I'm gonna go ahead and put you in the green room.
Wow, what a story. I'm listening to Heater. Okay, first of all, I don't know. Hi, Cindy. I don't know how I got invited to be part of the Gust group of aviators, but Heater, your story, holy crap. I used to fly the Super 80, which is the same as the DC-9. There's nothing super about it. It's a 57 Chevy. It's a good workhorse. We had a million of them at our airline, and it was a lot of fun to fly. But that airplane, what would get guys in trouble, and I wonder if they did this, was to go climb up to a different altitude, and they use vertical speed. And if they use vertical speed, then the airspeed, as you said, would start decaying. Um, that airplane should have just fallen out of the sky at that point. So it was amazing that you made it. But all right, Aviation Day. I was trying to collect my thoughts. First of all, Leekster, I owe him $1 million. He's the kindest guy, funniest guy you've ever met. Heater is the genesis, as they said, to everything that has ever happened aviation, and genuinely the guy that influenced and motivated so many like myself. And so without that Heater in the center of everything, we wouldn't be here. Honestly, I mean, my uncle was an F-14 Rio with the Pukin Dogs, hoorah, out in East Coast at 143. And it was Heater's. Well, my uncle would always take me flying in his Cherokee 140. And my very first flight at 6 years old was on a 727 where the pilots let me go sit up in the cockpit the whole time. And I thought, this is cool. I want to do this when I grow up. And I wish we could allow more kids to be exposed to commercial aviation. But, after advent of 9/11, you just unfortunately can't do that. Now, I did go down and interview all the pilots. And so I would see a air crew walking in and go get a hamburger. And I'd say, hey, sir, I'm, Mitch Bell. I'm 7th grade. I want to be an airline pilot. Do you mind if I sit down, ask you some questions? And so they would let me sit down. Hey, what branch of the service were you in? What airplane did you fly? What was your major in college? Were you military, civilian? Is the airline life conducive to family life? Where have you gone? What have you done? All of that stuff. So that's basically building a biography for myself. And as Leekster said, there was no Google, there were no podcasts. There was a lady in the office there that had a book about this thick, and it would list a job, how much it paid, did it require a college degree, and I think there was less than a paragraph about airline pilots. So if you're out there, you want to be a pilot, which I highly recommend. It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Go to the airport and go start talking to folks, whether it's your local small airport. Go to the FBO. You're going to find guys like me that were, old military pilots, and they can give you some great sound advice. Just don't take any financial advice from airline pilots. I highly would recommend that. But, do that and then take an introductory flight, one of the special flights that you can just sign up for, and just go buzz around with some instructor and see if it just makes, every time you see it and you see an airplane fly and you go up, that you just want to do that as well. So that's my advice for the young kids celebrating National Aviation Day, because you look at the gray hair on all of our heads, and we have all kind of chewed our teeth in this business for a long time. We need a new crop of young folks basically step up, become military pilots, serve our country, be civilian pilots, get your ratings. You don't even have to go to college anymore. You just have to get all of your ratings and experience in hours. So You get that, then you can come, fly the friendly skies.
Have you met Joe Del Bogno yet? Have I introduced you to him?
No.
Yeah, so his son was a Thunderbird, and sadly, he lost his life in while doing his job, what he loved. So the father and the whole family is still here in Southern California, and so they actually have a program where they take kids out in the airplane. And although not really a kid, almost 60 years old, I'm actually going to be a part of that flight program. So I just got to get myself to sign up for it. So we'll probably have them on later on this week because it's also Aviation Week. So definitely stay tuned for that, and I'll give you a connection email. And also, like I talked on your podcast the other day, Jack Inch, I got introduced through the Midway. He actually used to be a radar intercept officer on the Midway, F4 Phantom. So I'm going to connect you with him too. He's just going through some issues right now, but I'll do a connection. So we got about 5 more minutes on you. So let's talk about a story that's pretty epic. You're in the Marines. Let's kind of talk about that.
Well, all right. So Leekster and, of course, Rob and everybody who are F-14s. There I was over the North Atlantic, cold, freezing cold, flying from Mildenhall, England, up to Keflavik, Iceland. And I get out of the seat. I'm in the left seat, and the aircraft commander comes up, kicks me out, and I go plug into the observer's mic. And I hear, people are talking over the ICS intercom system. I hear, Marine tanker, speed 16 on guard, how copy? And I'm like, oh, wow, man, I hear somebody on guard. And about that time, my buddy Tony raises his hand and goes, hey, shh, everybody, be quiet. And then you hear it again. Hey, Marine tanker, speed 16 on guard, how copy? And he goes, hey, go ahead, Spade 16, you got Otis 25. And then Bernie goes, hey, Tony, I got this. And he goes, hey, Spade 16, come up our freak, 325, whatever, squadron freak. And so Roger. And so the guy switches, and he goes, hey, what can we do for you, Spade 16? And he says, man, we're so glad to see you guys. We were on cap up here outside of Keflavik. We lost our INS. They dumped, and we need a DF steer back to Keflavik and some gas if you can give it to us. We're like, yeah, sure. So we start talking within the cockpit, standby, how much gas can we give them and still land at Kef and do all this? Well, we come up with the number, and then the engineer says, hey, sir, just want to let you know the right hose is geared for helicopters, which is a larger basket. The left hose is 27-inch hose, is written up as bad. It's got a bad plug in it. Well, this is an emergency. We're going to overwrite that and try it. So they put the hose out. The airplane kind of moves over as the hose goes out and catches the airstream. The F-14 plugs into it. And when he does, he starts giving them gas. It's like, I don't know, 200, 300 gallons a minute. I mean, it's pumping gas through the hose, big hose. And the guy gets a bad seal. And when he does, it starts shooting gas straight down this F-14's front of the F-14. Wow. And it basically catches the airplane on fire. And the guy, when he unplugs, it blows the engines up and the guy ejects. You hear him call, eject, eject, eject. And the airplane, the 2 pilots eject, pilot and Rio. And we're sitting there trying to look, like what is going on? And as the airplane spins around, there's a cloud deck. The airplane goes through it. We don't see it. So now we're going through all the options that we can talk about. And the guys hit the water, and when they do, their salt-activated ELT goes off. So now we're hearing the ELT over the emergency frequency, and then we know that they hit the water. And so as they're going through all of the stuff about what we can do, could we go down and drop a life raft out? Can we do this? Can we do that? There's so much stuff that we're going over. And finally, the aircraft commander says, we gave these guys gas on a bad hose, so they're going to put us up before a board. We're probably going to get hammered and kicked out of the Marine Corps. You'll never be a pilot again. So we ended up taking a vote. We're going to leave them. And so we left. And everyone's like, man, never tell anybody? No, never tell a soul. And so when Tony starts, he's the last guy. He looks to me. I'm like, yeah, I vote continue. And everybody's voted up to this point, from Lance Corporal all the way up to the senior captain is the last guy. I go ahead, and Tony's looking at me with daggers in his eyes, and they're like, up to you, Tony. The engineer says, well, screw them anyway. They were going to die. They're just jet guys or something like that. And Tony goes, all right, straight, keep going. Well, they kick Tony out of the seat, and when they do, that's when they tell him it was just made up. It was an exercise we do on new guys. And that was a big relief off of Tony, because he couldn't believe that these guys would leave two fellow gold wingers swinging in the surf. But that was called the Phantom F-14, and we used to do that to every new pilot that came into the squadron. And it was kind of your initiation test. It was scary. It was a crazy deal. But anyway, thank you so much for having me on, Cindy. I tell you, Leekster, go back on Tall Tales with Taco. Go back and watch. I did a podcast with Leekster, and he has it's on YouTube. He has a story about the visor on the cat shock going down. He thinks he has a complete electrical failure. It's the funniest thing ever. I did a podcast with Rob. I've done 3 with Heater. And also, I just wanted to say, I don't know if Heater's still on or not, but there is a campaign that we started, and it's called Squawk 7700 Heater Needs Some Help. Oh. And so if you go to givetaxfree.org/campaigns/squawk 7700 Heater Needs Some Help, or Google that, I'm sure it'll come up. We've raised $95,000 for Heater, and it's for his treatment. And I tell you what, it means a lot to me, and Heater means a lot to all of us. Yes, so if your listeners can give $5, $10, anything helps. And we got to keep positive wishes for Heater and Kay, and keep going with the positive thought. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Rob can pick up. And thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Rob Todd. Are you there? Rob Todd. Somebody want to call Rob Todd? There he is.
Cindy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk story. I mean, you've been on the show many times, probably at least 4 or 5 times, but let's talk story a little bit about you and Leekster.
Oh God. Well, first of all, I wanted to preface this and say, number one, the best part of all of this, having Heater on, is the one. Well, I guess he's the link that kind of sews us all together.
Definitely.
And having that connection with him, hitting everybody that we have anything to do with on here, just being able to be here and be a part of this is an amazing thing. I joined the Navy because of Leekster. I joined the Navy because of Heater. And that was 38 years ago when Top Gun came out. And then while I was on board the USS America was my first introduction to Leekster. He was in VF 102. And there's another one of his friends, another one of his squadron mates on here as well. Smokehouse, you'll talk to him later. But they had like he said, I worked on the catapults and launched these guys all the time. But once again, all this started with Heater. Everything started with Heater. And he motivated me, as he did many, 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 many other guys, to join. And then being able to be a part of that, and then know, what I was doing, it was different because the pilots that I got to launch or that I got to be a part of, I never really got to be, we were told not to speak to these guys at all. We were told not to speak to officers that were not in our chain of command. And but Cindy, I looked up to these guys like they were gods, and in my eyes, they were gods. And we were down in the gym one day in the USS America, and I saw a guy working out, and he had a VF 102 shirt on, and he carried himself like an officer. So I was kind of hesitant to speak to him. At the same time, I couldn't help myself either. And I went over to introduce myself, and it was Leekster. And I said, are you an F-14 pilot? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I'm a Tomcat pilot. And it was like my heart seized up. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't see. I couldn't think. I couldn't talk. And I said, and he wasn't saying like, what's your job on the ship? He's like, hey man, what do you do on the ship? I told him I work on the catapults, and he's like, oh man, that is an amazing job. And then I said, is there any way that you could take up my camera? Yeah, I worked directly alongside the shooter, which is the catapult officer, and him and I are basically the team that launches. We're the top of the team that launches the aircraft. And I asked him, I said, is there any way you can take my camera up and take some pictures? He's like, yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. And I said, oh God. So that's what I did. He goes, you have it on you? I said, no, I got to go grab it I got to go get it out of my berthing and I'll bring it to you. And he goes, well, just bring it up to the ready room. Well, Cindy, the ready room on an aircraft carrier is a sacred place. It's like, if you want to be in heaven, that is where you want to be. You want to be in a fighter squadron ready room.
Yep.
And I thought, this is unbelievable. I'm getting ready to do this. But I was so nervous. So I went and got my camera, and this is the first F-14 pilot that I talked to besides Dale Snort Snodgrass. And It wasn't, we weren't even out to sea when I talked to it with Snort. He was leaving VF-33 when I met him.
Another legend. Oh my God. What a great experience for you.
Yes. And then, but Leekster flew with Snort several times, and I didn't know this until later, but gave my camera to him, and he went up and took a bunch of pictures for me. And that was a life-altering experience as far as my Navy career was basically considered, because at the time, I was told we weren't supposed to talk to officers. They didn't care what we did. And but walk up to that ready room, and I get so nervous. The guy opens the door, and I stuttered, and I said, I need to speak with Petty Officer Leekster. Well, Leekster was a lieutenant at the time. And the guy at the door even said, but Petty Officer Leekster, somebody wants to see you. It was so scary and embarrassing to me. And here I was, trying to put on a cool face and relax. And then, so I walk into this room, this fighter squadron room, VF 102's ready room. First thing they do is tell me, don't step on the snake. And all these pilots start asking, and they're looking at me, and they're asking, they're like, what do you do on the ship? And then the XO, Commander Barbary at the time, his call sign was Pirate. His name, Pirate, Barbary Pirates. And he said, hey man, what do you do on the ship? And I told him, and he goes, you guys do such a good job launching us. He goes, I can't believe it. And kind of did the same thing that Leekster did. And it was mind-boggling. It actually made me sick to my stomach, because it was such the gravity of that situation was so thick. And the room started spinning. I started getting sick to my stomach, and Leekster brought out my camera, or Leekster came out. I gave him my camera, and my God, the rest is history. 30 years. I don't know how. Let's see. I got out of the Navy, and I got out of the regular Navy the first time in '95. I came back in '98 to go do something else. But I hooked up with Taco. I did a Facebook post, and Taco read that Facebook post. It was all about meeting Leekster.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes,
that's exactly how we met as well.
That is exactly how we met. And then, He goes, I hadn't spoken to him in almost 30 years. And Leekster goes, Taco said, hey, he goes, I know Leekster. I flew with him in America. And he goes, I'm going to hook you up with him. And I said, oh, yeah, that ain't never going to happen. He goes, no, he's going to call you on Tuesday. And Tuesday, Leekster calls and wants to put me on his podcast. And then that leads to the podcast with Lorenzo, who's also on here. That led me to meet up with Smokehouse, who's also on here because of Lorenzo's podcast. But still, Cindy, it all goes back to Heater,
It sure
putting
does.
us all on this similar path of different areas, but we get back to the same area. And knowing that we had that connection was just, I don't know, it was just amazing. It really is. And then it's been a whirlwind since then. The podcast is with Lorenzo. I've done several of them with him. And then Taco's the one that got me reintroduced to Leekster. Heater was the one that all of this happened at the same time. Then I met you guys for Top Gun days, and here we are.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to be here with you.
No other, my friend. It's a tribe like no other.
Yep.
So anything in closing you'd like to say before Lorenzo?
Well, it's an honor to have me here for sure. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. The rest of the guys in this podcast. It has been a whirlwind for me. Like they said, I'm out here working on this Tomcat here in Kansas, and it's all because of every guy that's on here. I am honored to be able to. Every time it's hot and sweaty in my arms, I'm so tired I can't pick up my drink bottle. It's because of the honor that those guys gave me to be able to do what I got to do in the Navy, and it's because of guys like Heater, Leekster, Smokehouse. All of the guys, Taco, all the guys you guys have on here. It's an honor to be here. And thanks for letting me tell my story.
So what works for my 60th birthday better for you?
As far as
Wisconsin, or we do celebrate the Tomcat in Kansas? I want to do something aviation for my birthday next year. So those are the two options that we have.
What month is your birthday?
July.
Oh, it's extremely hot here in July, but
Wisconsin, so it's either going to be Wisconsin or it's going to be the Tomcat.
Well, in Wisconsin, there's a whole lot more because in Waukene, there is nothing here except for the Tomcat.
Well,
so
I'm good with that.
I think it'd probably be better in Wisconsin, but yeah, I could do either.
Okay, good deal. And we'll get you back on because we got Aviation History Month again in November. And get you back on with Robin Stern and, talk some more stuff and how we could get more people and get people to start donating to the cause.
Awesome.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for having me, Cindy.
Thank you. Lorenzo, I forgot my mustache.
How you doing?
Oh, wow. How am I doing? 3-4 years later. And if it wasn't for you having that Instagram, reaching out to you, connecting me to Leekster. Excuse me. It's a very emotional day, guys. This is a long time coming.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Their leadership is.
Sorry about the waterworks here, but because of you, all this has happened. And I wasn't able to be a part of the Navy. That's really, really close to my heart. But I'm able to do that through all of you. So thank you so much. So let's talk story about F-14, baby.
Thank you. But I got to say, I'm just another set of headlights in traffic compared to the leadership you see on the screen today. I had the honor of growing up in front of Grumman Calverton, where all 712 F-14 Tomcats were built. And, I want to take a second right now to point out today in Tomcat history, Hank in music, VF-41 Black Aces, Tomcats 2, Libya 0. They went out and, Muammar Gaddafi with the line of death and weren't having it. And we got it done. So I just want to give a shout out to them. But again, the leadership in this community is second to none. Just Captain C.J. Heater-Heatley, his life story is, you hear each story of each person talking tonight, whether it's Taco, whether it's Leekster, or it'll be Smokehouse in a second. It's nothing you're going to hear anywhere on this planet. You can go anywhere. You're not going to hear these stories. And that's the leadership that defines the golden age of naval aviation. And for me growing up with it, I got my experience in the 90s getting to meet, them in the Navy and Oceana and stuff. I didn't serve in the Navy, but going down to countless air shows and, getting to be a part of the community. And then eventually I got involved with a congressman, and that gave me some backstage pass to the rock show, we'll say. And you got to see it from the inside out at that point and meet some of the finest people serving in VF 101 reg instructors and the demo team. And that just inspired us, to learn more about what, you lived and died by, where the swordsmen were they on deployment? Did 213 get back? And, where were the Diamondbacks? It was 31 on a deployment out at Fallon. And it was a big deal in the F-14 community, especially back at home at NAS Oceana. And so years went by after the Tomcat retired, and I decided to start a webpage to tell a little story about an airplane company that built an airplane called the F-14 Tomcat, and what it was like to know it from the inside, not just from, we'll say what we see. If you were to do an interview, you got one person's angle on what their position was in the company, but looking at it as an overall of what the company did throughout its history since 1929. And from there, we got hijacked by the United States Navy, and it's been just making wake off the back of the ship since. And today, we run the second largest platform in naval aviation, and it's supporting the flight deck literally only in that sense. And Blue Angels got us beat. If you gave us a running Tomcat with maybe Leekster in it and a few other guys, I think we'd beat out the Blue Angels. The Tomcat is that big. And again, it's because of these very people on this screen and their leadership. It's just a hydraulic machine. They brought it to life. And with that, they inspired all of us, to me and you sitting here today.
Mm-hmm. Well, so anybody who's still on, actually, if you go to the link that I sent you on either Facebook Messenger or on email, you could actually go onto this broadcast and comment what you learned today, how amazing it was to connect with all the leadership here. And let's get Smokehouse on. So thank you for connecting Smokehouse. I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. And in the words of the commanding officer of VF 102 Diamondbacks, Puke, I just want to say God saved the ship with this interview. And I'm going to throw in free Smokehouse.
Well, welcome to the show. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Cindy. Can you hear me okay?
You got your camera on?
I think I do. It's telling me to stop cam, but it's not telling me to start it. So it's on. Maybe, I don't know. You're just going to have to guess at what I look like. Yeah. I'm just thrilled to have a microphone.
Yeah, I'm going to put you in the green room, and then anyone can go to the Facebook message or either the email and just click it, and you could comment here. Because anything that you comment now is in private chat. But if you go through the email link, then you can do it right live. Okay. Smokehouse, let's talk.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, let's talk. By the way, thank you so much. I am so honored to be on the same show with Leekster and Heater and Rob and Taco. I mean, I don't know who gave you your guest list, but these guys are the elites. They really are good dudes.
That would be Lorenzo. It all started.
Yeah, honestly, I am just so thrilled to be counted among them. I truly am.
So let's talk story on how you got started in Navy and your time on the Cap.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't. So I'm really hard to draw things out of. So you're probably gonna have a hard time getting me to stop talking. So just let me know when you need me to shut up. But I got.
Quickly. Do you have a website that way I can promote you on here, or do you have a Facebook page? So
I have a Facebook page. It's just Pat Casey.
Okay.
Yeah.
CASEY.
Yep. CASEY. I was looking for you. I was going to try and send you a friend request, but I'm looking under Cindy Lee and I don't see it.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But so I worked as a lifeguard at Virginia Beach, and I remember when the Tomcats first came out. It was before the movie, and I was standing on my lifeguard stand, and these two Tomcats came raging overhead, just side by side with their wings swept back. And I was like, wow, those guys get paid to do that. That's what I want to do. So I talked to, at the time, my high school girlfriend's dad was a Navy pilot. And I said, what do you have to do? And he said, you just have to go to college and get a piece of paper that says you put up with it. And I did, and got my piece of paper and eventually got into the Navy. I went through aviation officer candidate school, just like Officer and a Gentleman, where I met my future wife. And it was just, it just couldn't have been more perfect. Honestly, it was just the way things worked out. It was just a dream come true.
So it looks like there's still no video. Yeah, there's a few people commenting on the broadcast.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I really don't know what the deal is. It says my video is on, but I'm not sure. We'll have to work on that at some point.
Yeah, we'll get you back on in November if you'd
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah. So were you based out here in Southern California?
I was in Oceana, actually.
Oceana. Okay.
Yeah, I was working as a lifeguard in Virginia Beach. When I got selected for jets, they said, where do you want to go? And I said, West Coast. So, of course, the Navy, in their infinite wisdom, sent me to the East Coast. And so I got to go to the Grim Reapers for RAG training. And then I went to the Diamondbacks, VF 102, for my sea duty. And wow, it was just crazy. We were there for and we were the USS Never Dock. We were on the USS America, but I wound up getting 326 traps in my first at sea period. My first shore sea duty. So it was like a 3-year period, and that was quite a bit at the time. But I joined the squadron. We were in the North Atlantic, and then we did a full 6-month cruise, and then we came back. Then the Gulf War started. So we got sent over early, and then they wanted us to get back in the normal rotation. So we did it again. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, had
stories on deck on the catapult.
I have a really funny catapult story, but I don't know how off color I can go. So I'll tell you a good aviation story. People usually like this one. The way that the Navy works, you get allotted so much stuff per quarter. And so if you have so much money for ammunition, you buy that much ammunition, and then you have to use it by the end of the quarter, or you don't get that amount of ammunition again the next time, or you have to fight for it. So we were out wasting ammunition, strafing, and we were pointing at the water. We were in nighttime over the Indian Ocean, and we were pointing down, and we were supposed to just shoot our bullets after we radar cleared the area and just waste the bullets so we would have more bullets. I don't know. That's probably a terrible thing to do, but that's what we were told to do. So we're out there shooting our guns, and my wingman, his gun jammed. So he pulled back on the power, and he put out his speed brakes, and he started slowing down because we were supposed to pull out by a certain altitude. So when his gun jammed, the procedure that they told you was to flip your switch to off and back to on. And so he did that. And when he flipped his switch back to on, it turned out that he was selected Sidewinder by accident. And so when he pulled the trigger, a Sidewinder came off the airplane. And so initially my Rio was watching, and he said, "Oh, you're not going to believe what just happened." And he was laughing. And then all of a sudden he realized that the missile was coming towards us. We were the only heat source. So he started screaming in my ear. The other pilot in the other airplane started screaming, "Brake, brake, brake." So I pulled the nose up, and I pulled the throttles back, and I tried to minimize my heat source, and I started pumping out flares, and my nose got really high. And then the next thing you know, the airplane just took off, departed controlled flight, and we were falling like a leaf out of a tall tree in the wintertime. It was end over end. And so I was neutralizing the controls, and we eventually pulled out. We got as low as 1,500 feet on the baro altimeter, and that lagged. And we pulled out, and we went back up, and we went to Marshall, and we put on the autopilot. And immediately my body started shaking so violently because of the adrenaline dump. And so we waited in Marshall for a couple of turns because I was like, we knew we had come really close to dying. And so when we came back, it was like, all right, I'm gonna stop on the first time. I'm definitely gonna stop on the first time. So we came in and we flew our night landing on the carrier, and immediately it was like the injection of adrenaline again. My whole body was shaking so violently that, when you steered in the F-14, you used your rudder pedals and your nose wheel steering. And my legs were shaking so much that I had to, my back seater was the guy that worked the radios. And I said, tell him we have a hydraulic failure and we need to get towed out of landing area, because my legs were shaking so bad I couldn't, manage the nose pedal. So we got towed out of the landing area and we sat there for about 5 minutes, just sitting there in a dark airplane. And I said to him, why didn't you punch us out? And he said, because you said I got it. And I said, I never said I got it. He said, you said I got it. So we stopped at a ready room, at a debriefing room that wasn't being used, on our way back to our ready room. And we put in the tape, which was running at the time. And the entire time that we're in uncontrolled flight, I'm saying to him, I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. So the lesson learned was never believe your pilot. I knew the airplane would start flying again. I just didn't have any idea we were so low to the water. So it was absolutely crazy. But we did it. We managed to make it.
That's amazing. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone want to chime in on that? We got a few more minutes for
Hey, can I get a
we'll close
request?
out.
Can I get a request from Heater about a supersonic flyby, maybe with maybe some General Schwarzkopf on deck?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, come on, Heater.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And
Leekster is still here.
there's a guy that you all know named Slapshot Carter. He was running the Nebraska University of Nebraska system, and then Ohio State pulled him over this New Year's Day. And he was the War College president and also the Naval Academy president. So he's in my back seat, and we're the only people in the area when Saddam took Kuwait. The Air Force got over there, but their logistics were so screwed up, they didn't have any weapons. So they had some airplanes in Riyadh, but no missiles. So Schwarzkopf had to come out and see what the carrier could do with them. So we organized an air show demo where we were going to drop lots of bombs, shoot the spar up with the gun. And the show started with me and Slapshot doing a supersonic pass. So we get behind the ship so they don't see us coming. And by behind, I mean starboard of the island, because 3,000 people are on the flight deck looking to the port side with their backs to the island. And they're just looking around to, all right, when's this air show going to start and where are the airplanes? Meanwhile, I'm back there doing about 800 knots, and Slapshot's going 50 feet, 1.0, 50 feet, 1.1, 55 feet, 1.15. And so I hit my mark, came around the round down, about 6 Gs, and supersonic, and ended up plan form right in front of Schwarzkopf and his entourage. I could see him even though we were going as fast as a bullet. His entourage was not hard to pick out amongst all the sailors. And he, in fact, wasn't hard to pick out. So I leveled my wings right after that, just at the end of the angle deck, and yanked it straight up and did aileron rolls until I was out of sight. And it left 2 huge vortices in the water. And Slapshot and I were talking about that just the other day. He remembers that really well because we had a nice rooster tail behind us as we were coming in to do the flyby. Is that the one you were talking about?
Yeah, that was the one, actually.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It was the other one with the ship door, if you remember that one.
Yeah. We don't
That's a good one, too.
Aviation Day.
That's a good one, too.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to get... I don't think the statute of limitations is out for that yet.
So do you have a puppy there, Heater?
Yeah, big one. Coco, come here. Come on.
I actually just got a lab Great
Bodie.
Dane mix
Bodie.
just 2 days ago.
Come here and see Coco. Come here and see Coco.
Oh,
Hey, Coco. There he is.
hey.
There he is.
That is a great dog.
Say hi, Coco.
Coco, remember Rob? Remember Rob? Yeah, he remembers Bodie.
Oh, I should bring my little lab. He's 4 months old.
I got a pet cat. His name's Felix.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so normally my podcast for aviation goes 45. My regular podcast is 30 because I have a lot of my tribe here. I would like to go a few more minutes. If you guys like to touch on anything about aviation that my audience can find very, very helpful. Taco, go ahead.
I want to hear UFO stories from Heater.
Hey, you just started today.
You already did a podcast on that.
I'd like to just throw out there for any kids listening, don't be afraid to walk up to a current serving U.S. Navy aircrew standing in front of their jet at an air show or anywhere you may run into them, and feel free to ask them questions, talk to them. You'll be quite surprised how they will take their time for you the way others, as you see on the screen, took their time for them. And, they will, you will make friends, trust me, and they will, they'll help you meet your dreams in life. If aviation's your goal, you speak to the right people, the inspiration you'll get from them it's enough to fire your soul completely into helping you achieve your dreams. And it's not an easy
100%. Lorenzo, I walked up to Dale Snort Snodgrass not knowing who he was.
Wow.
15 of my closest enlisted friends said, he's a commander, don't go talk to him. And I walked up to him and I said, do you fly this jet? And he's like, yeah, man. And he goes, you want, I've said, I've never seen one up close. He goes, you want a tour? Gave me a 45-minute tour of it. And then 3 years later, remembered who I was when I met him at Oceana.
That's because you took the time.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You say Dale, the first thing I think of is a lifeguard at the beach here on Long Island. That's what he did at a high school. He was a lifeguard, and so again, always gave to his community. But yeah, they're just so approachable, and the stories they have is just simply amazing. Lived a life unlike any other, and their experiences are second to none. They honestly are, and it's just awesome. It's an honor to know them. It really is. It's something special.
Peter, do you have your watch?
Not on me.
Oh, not okay. We'll do it in November if you have time to come on our show in November.
Yeah. It's on my Facebook page if you want to see. It's actually, you can see it better on the Facebook page than you can on my wrist, plus the back.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I need this for a lot of medical reasons. I have to track EKG, oxygen, and a bunch of other stuff, and it does it. So
at the end of the show, when I do aviation, because this really means a lot to me, and I'm going to ask each and every one of you, what do maintainers mean to you? Go ahead, Smokehouse.
Well, nobody does what they do in our business without the maintainers. I mean, those guys took their job so seriously. I never once showed up to an airplane that wasn't absolutely, to the best of their abilities, perfect, because they knew that your life was in their hands. I never met one single maintainer that just didn't take his job so seriously. And quite honestly, if he wasn't good at it, they put him someplace else because they only needed the best.
Exactly. Taco.
I was watching Masters of the Air, and there was a scene in one of the episodes where they're taxiing out, and if the airplane doesn't take off, they were watching the airplanes take off, they were leading the bombing mission, and the number 3 wasn't starting, and the young mechanic, he jumps up in the wheel well, and he literally is adjusting the magneto on the engine as they're taxiing, and he's yelling, "We're number 4 in line. We're number 2 in line. We're number 1." He's like, "Sir, I got it. Start it." And the guy starts the engine, gets it going, and they take off. And you're going, that is awesome, because without the mechanics, we're not going flying. We can't do our job. So that right there was every mechanic needs to have that before in their presentation. Anyway, that's my
Leekster,
thought.
maintainers, what do they mean to you since you're still on?
Well, it's exactly like Taco said, but frankly, I started my career as a maintainer. I worked on police helicopters, and I was pumping gas, and I was out there parking airplanes at all hours of the day and night, polishing, cleaning. Trust me, cleaning a giant corporate jet by hand is a little different than washing your car. So I've been on that side of the equation as too, and I know how hard those guys work. And a carrier has limited space. So when I think about our mechanics at airlines, they do amazing work making sure those airplanes are ready to go. But I'll tell you what, in the military, on a carrier where you have limited space, they're working 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer, 12 on, 12 off, because they don't have the room for 3 shifts. So you'll see these guys, going. You've never seen people that work so hard, young people that do everything they can to make sure those airplanes are ready to rock and roll when they're needed. Very impressed, especially during Desert Storm, during those combat operations. The airplanes were just pristine. It was amazing.
Rob.
What do maintainers mean to me, Cindy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, me not necessarily being a maintainer, all I got to do was launch these guys into the sky. But I will tell you that it's funny, Leekster says 12-hour shift. We never had a 12-hour shift. It was 24-hour shifts.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We launched nonstop. And then as soon as the launching was done, well, guess what? That catapult had to be 100% availability as soon as they were ready to go. We always had to have an alert cat hot and ready to shoot. So, being in that environment is nothing like what people can possibly even imagine. My time on the flight deck, associated with the Navy, associated with naval aviation, taught me so many different things. And it's about work ethic, and it's time management, discipline, all those different things. But every single time one of those jets took off, the Tomcat was like its own animal. It's like its blood was hydraulic fluid, pumping through its veins. It was like a living, breathing animal to me. But the person in that cockpit and the rear office, those lives were more important to me than anything right there at that time, until the holdback broke, the launch valves opened, and they went off the end of my catapult. That was the only important thing to me. And so that's why every time they left, I hand saluted each one of them. That was letting them know, your lives are in my hands right now. You're in good hands, and have a good flight. See you when you get back.
That's amazing, because actually just a few months ago over at with Chappie over in San Diego, they had Top Gun movie night. It's always at the end of May. And then a few days later, I had a really great opportunity of meeting all these pilots and radar intercept officers, and it was absolutely amazing. I met this guy in the crowd that was an actual maintainer. And it actually was National Aviation Maintainer Day on that Friday. And he goes, "Wow, I didn't know there's even such a day." And I had a really nice conversation with him, probably a good 20 minutes, half hour, on how important the maintainers are.
The maintainers that I knew maintained those jets as if they were their own vehicles. I mean,
Exactly.
They had a personal and a professional attachment to what it is they had their hands on.
Yeah, that's really, you have such a great story, and I love having all of you on, and getting you back on just means so much to me, and this is a huge part of my heart. So thank you so much. Lorenzo.
Well, I would be the first to say, just like in the real world, behind every great man is a great woman, and same thing, vice versa. And you'll see the same thing in the maintenance departments. The maintenance departments that stood out amongst others within the F-14 community were simply none other than the leadership that was above it. And I can give you a good example of that. Obviously, running our webpage, I had recently told a little story about Heater, and we're talking 3 decades ago. His maintainers are cheering and screaming like he was the greatest experience of their life. His leadership that he led his squadron with his maintainers created the best maintenance department, and created people that 30 years later look up to him still, seeking his leadership in the desire. And it's, again.
And Lorenzo, you need to say that's not typical.
No, it
that
is
doesn't
not.
happen everywhere.
Yep.
Dare I say? No, I'm not even gonna. But yeah, so I mean, Heater is a reason that we're all here. We're all inspired, and you can imagine his leadership at his level and what it does to a squadron. And you'll see the same thing in Leekster Squadron and the Diamondbacks, and their maintainers are so proud to have served with them distinctly. Them, not just any generation Diamondbacks, but to be there when they were there. And that's the same thing we see with Heater, whether it's Wolfpack with VF1 and VF21 freelancers. Incredible leadership at every level, sir. You the man.
Yes. And a very special viewer is going to get one of Heater's books.
Oh,
So I'm going to surprise somebody with that book that we all know very well. Heater, in a couple minutes, and then I have to close out. Maintainers, what did they mean to you while you're in service?
Well, you all know how much I love to fly and fight.
Baby.
And you can't fly and fight without an airplane. So I love the maintainers. And I think everybody in the ready room did. And it was totally different than what Rob was talking about. I don't think anyone in our squadron was ever afraid to come in the ready room or talk to us on the flight deck. In fact, we encouraged that. We even had tutoring programs because every officer had a college degree and they majored in something, and all the troops were doing either remote learning or trying to advance their education. So you could come in the ready room after flight ops in my squadrons, and right there in the ready room chair is one of the troops getting tutored by one of my officers.
That's cool.
And I must have re-enlisted close to 24 of my guys over the years, airborne in an airplane. Take them up, go supersonic, do all that kind of stuff. So people touched on it, but we depend on them for our very lives. Their lives are in our hands. If we screw something up and they're on the flight deck, they're in deep trouble, and vice versa. So it was mutual, and there was just a lot of love and respect in the squadrons I was in. And they make everything possible. So all the glory that you can talk about never happens without the maintainers.
Thank you so much. It means so much to me that you made the time, Heater, because I know you've been going through a really tough time with your health. And I would love for you to come on my podcast, possibly next month if you want, so we can talk about getting more funds to your GoFundMe. And then, of course, anybody who wants to come on in November and celebrate Aviation History Month. Anything else in closing that anybody like to add related to National Aviation Day?
Fly Navy.
Go Navy.
Fly Navy.
What do you say about that, Taco?
Hey, you know what?
Marines are still naval aviation.
I still wear gold wings. I have gold wings on my chest before I put on I put my green trousers on before I put my gold wings on. But you know what? Go Navy, beat Army. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Is there a crayon right underneath the Marine Corps wings?
I do have crayons here, as a matter of fact. I have crayons I carry, and when I on a podcast and I get hungry, I'll pull one out. But you know what? The problem is, do not eat the green crayons because they're not ripe. All right, they're not ripe.
He does not come on with a guy who eats crayons.
Yeah.
Good follow on, Taco. Good follow on.
So I have one question, Rob Todd, where you have the Tomcat right now. Is there any good taco spots next to that somewhere close? No?
There actually is a good Mexican restaurant here in Waukene. It's probably the only good restaurant here besides the one here at this hotel. But I might do that in honor of Taco tomorrow.
Oh, no. Oshkosh. I found the perfect place. And it's got fried curd cheese tacos.
Oh man.
They were to die for. Oh my God. Fried
curd
cheese.
You're taking us there at Oshkosh then, Taco.
Yeah, is that going to be my birthday gift?
Yeah, I'll buy you lunch there, Cindy. That place is well worth it.
And then angioplasty after that.
Yeah, I was walking around, could feel my heart starting to. I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you, Elizabeth.
Okay, shout outs. Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. All right, Taco. Shout out to your podcast.
Oh, Tall Tales with Taco Bell on YouTube and Facebook.
Okay, Leekster, he's on his way to work. Shout out to your
Yeah,
podcast.
you know the F-14 Tomcat radio show, man. It's Lorenzo. All things Grumman, baby.
There you go. Anytime, baby. Rob, shout out to your Facebook.
I have a Facebook page, but it's really no big deal. Same thing. I'm tied to Lorenzo's podcast, All Things Grumman, baby.
What about the F-14 project out there in Kansas?
Oh, well, I definitely have that. That is via Fighting 213 Tomcat Restoration.
There you go. Lorenzo.
Yep.
We have two podcasts. F-14 Calverton, All Things Grumman is the parent company. The official F-14 Tomcat radio show, and also Tomcat University. And want to thank a bunch of our hosts on here tonight, Leekster and Rob, Todd, and Smokehouse. Is absolutely awesome to work with these guys. It is just, it is absolutely humbling. Find us on YouTube at F-14 Calverton, All Things Grumman. We're on Instagram at F-14 Tomcat. Facebook, F-14 Tomcat Radio Show. Discord, F-14 Tomcat.
Wow.
You can email us at f14calverton@gmail.com. And again, I can't thank you enough to be with this set of talent on the screen. Heater, take it away, sir. You're such a legend. People need to know that you are a legend, and that's what our platform's all about, to ensure they never forget your leadership.
He's the reason all of us are here.
That's
exactly 100%. Yes.
Yeah, the cutting edge must have been something, because I did a podcast with Ward Carroll, Mooch.
Oh, I've been trying to get him on for a good couple years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's well over 500,000 views already. Are there 500,000 people watching you now, Cindy? I can't see.
Not
them.
quite that many, no.
Okay.
I get a lot of people watching after. Yeah, because this is
just joking
here in California. Yeah.
Just joking. I was just surprised, and a lot of the viewers' comments, and many of those 500,000 sent notes, just like you guys were talking about, and almost every one of them had the cutting edge, or both, of Forged in Steel also. And then when I went to the Top Gun reunion, I was there with Jello. So Vince and Aiello, Jello has the fighter pilot podcast, and I just did that one. And to get ready for both of those, Taco did two with me, and that was really good because Taco's really great at it. So now I've done 4 podcasts with 2 of you and those 2 guys.
Very good. Well, I'm going to pop everybody in the green room. I have a 3:30 meeting. I just wanted to thank you so much, my new Plain Porn tribe. Thank you so much for being here. And Heater, I will be in touch, and love to give you on, like I said, to do some fundraisers for you, and figure some things so we can get more money to your GoFundMe. And definitely, Rob, the same thing goes for you, to come back on the podcast so we could talk about doing some events there. And Lorenzo, Porn Star Mustache, always here supporting. Thank you. And then Mitch Taco Bell. Make sure they follow him at his podcast as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put everybody in the green room and hang tight for 1 second.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Adios, hasta luego, auf Wiedersehen, tschüss.
Well, there you go, guys. Make sure that you take the time to follow everybody. If you actually look at the show notes, they'll be there later. Also, throughout the broadcast, I was populating everybody's page. That way you could connect with them. This is Cindy over at Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. And stay tuned. We have some more aviation podcasts throughout the week. And if you have a young person under the age of 18, I could actually connect you to an amazing person who can get you on that first flight. So go out and live your aviation dream.